Hey, what's up guys? JB here. In a big surprise this week, Warrior of Light is once again gracing us with his brave presence here in Global. This was super unexpected as he only just returned over on the Japanese side just last week, where he got his Mastery 2 and Dream enhancements. So it seems here in Global we're actually going to be receiving that Mastery 2 enhancement here just a bit earlier than we had anticipated. Now I know some of you out there may not have this unit quite yet. You know, maybe you passed on him the first couple times he came around, or you know, maybe you're just newer to the game and you know, you haven't had an opportunity to grab him yet. So I wanted to give just a quick mini review just to kind of share my thoughts on where this unit stands now and into the future, you know, once he really gets those Dream enhancements here in a few months, and just to kind of see if he's really worth it if you're going to be investing into him for the first time. So with that said, let's get started. Now, Warrior of Light has been with us here in Global for more than 2 years now, so I am not going to go into each detail of his kit here as I normally do. I have filled out the entire infographic here with his complete stats and TMR, so you know, feel free to pause it and take a closer look at it if you need to. Now, in terms of that TMR, it's definitely a pretty interesting one. In terms of the base stats, you know, notably it has one of the highest accuracies that we see on a TMR, you know, for that accessory piece. Now for the effect itself, it is providing a 30% increased HP for 3 turns, and it also gives a 10% TP auto restore. Now that particular effect is very unique in the game. I can't really off the top of my head think of any other TMR that gives that particular effect. And, you know, there are some support units out there that do kind of burn through their TP very quickly. So, you know, maybe in terms of them, it could be fairly interesting. The problem there is, though, that, you know, you really want those support units to be doing the other things that they bring to the party, you know, mainly in terms of buffing their teammates and healing and things like that. So where you kind of fit in this TMR and then, you know, also losing the opportunity to use another TMR that might give some beneficial effects is kind of a trade-off there. So to be honest, I really don't think it's worth it, though, you know, maybe someday, you know, it could have an interesting use, you know, who knows. Now moving down to his stats, he is coming in with one of the highest HP values in the game for both base and innate values, and he is within the top 5 in both of those categories. His attack and dexterity are definitely leaving a lot to be desired here, especially his attack. He's coming in well below average. Now on the other hand, his luck is actually very nice. He has a 199 base luck value, and he's coming in with 256 innate, which is actually pretty strong and puts him well above the UR average there in that category. And that luck does translate directly into his crit evade value, which also is coming in there above average. That is really where the good kind of stops here for this unit. You can see his agility there in particular coming in at just a 52 base value. It is among the lowest in the entire game. Now he actually only gets a 4 increase on his board, which would bring him up to a 56 base value, and sadly he doesn't have any agility passives to increase that any further. And to make matters worse, they actually opted not to give him an agility bump, you know, within this Mastery 2 update or his Dream enhancement, which we'll be seeing here in a few months. So, you know, as things stand now, this will always be a huge problem for this unit. You know, the general trend for agility numbers really has increased, you know, over the past couple of years, where, you know, we are seeing units coming in with well over 70 base agility, you know, when you are factoring in passives. And the UR average is actually 68, you know, when we are accounting for those passive abilities. Now, in terms of his accuracy, you know, his strong luck really does kind of, you know, help him out quite a bit there. Again, he doesn't really have any ways to increase this any further, you know, anywhere else in his kit. So, you know, he does actually come in at a below average, you know, once you are factoring in those other areas. Now, believe it or not, he can actually be a passable evade tank as well. That's really on the back of the great vision cards that the light element has for that, but he can actually reach similar numbers to Engelbert in that category, actually coming in fairly close to where he ends up. Now, the biggest part of the update this week for Warrior of Light is that he is finally getting that enhanced Mastery 2 ability. So there he's finally going to be able to be competitive with other modern units. He's going to get that light mastery of 10 HP and 15 light attack. In addition to that, he is going to get 10 more defense, which will bring him up to a total of 15. He's going to get 20 magic resist, 5 innate hate, and most importantly, he's going to get an auto heal back ability that will trigger when he hits 50% HP or less. So definitely a lot to unpack there, but you know, this amounts to a pretty significant upgrade for this unit. You know, starting with that 5 hate, it does allow him to function as a proper tank in the game, as he'll have at least, you know, some form of undispellable hate there innately. The auto heal back, you know, is similar to abilities we've seen on Snow and Bold Leela, and that is going to allow him to potentially potentially be run, without a healer so that maybe you can double up on another damage dealer. So moving now down to his defenses, and this is really the star of the show for this unit. He's going to be coming in with an innate 27 total defense and 6 spirit. He's going to have huge resistances here to slash and magic at 25% each. And then he's going to have a pretty nice 15% to missile and, a decent 5% to strike there as well. So, that is all very strong. His only weakness here is going to be to pierce damage. And that one is actually pretty major for him. It's a pretty glaring weakness that is coming in at a -20 to that particular damage type. So overall here, very bulky, very strong defensively, but that low end agility and the lack of really any attack potency here, is definitely a bit concerning, I would say, for the current state of the game. So if you are in that camp that, is potentially wanting to invest into Warrior of Light, a big part of that consideration should be the future upgrades that we're aware of that are going to be coming into this unit. Now, the first thing that I'll mention will be job enhancements that we are aware of from the Japanese side to his Dragoon sub-job. And that's actually one that we should be seeing here in Global relatively soon, maybe sometime within the next month. And that job date does really have some relevance for this unit, specifically because of the passive ability that comes in on that job. The HP passive, not only is it going to give that 15% HP, but it will have a 20% healing power tacked onto it as well. One of the skills, Dragonskin, is also of some relevance as it actually can buff protect onto him as well. So something else that could be potentially nice to use. The biggest future upgrade though to this unit is obviously going to be in the form of his Dream Enhancement, which he actually just received over on the Japanese side, or Transcendence as it seems they're going to call it here on Global. Now Warrior of Light, he will be getting that physical tank tag, and you can see here, the HP really is the focus of this particular stat upgrade. He's going to be coming in with 3,300 additional HP that's going to be available as part of those upgrades. Now for that level 140 mastery, he is going to pick up an additional 20% HP, so that amounts to roughly an additional 850 on top of his total today. He is also picking up 20 healing power, and that along with that Dragoon passive would actually allow him to get to a passive 40 healing power innately, and we'll actually talk a little bit more about that here in a moment. Now the last part of the upgrade is going to be a skill upgrade, which is to his Invincible Shield ability. That's going to become Invincible Shield 2, and that's going to increase the power of that shield from a 30% all damage barrier up to a 50% all damage barrier. So, that skill, that's actually pretty nice. He can actually target both himself or his teammates with that. So, I do actually kind of like that one. Now, just to expand, a little bit more on that healing power that we were just talking about, having access to 20 innate healing power that he's going to be able to pick up from Dragoon here shortly, is actually pretty significant, especially since you can actually add another 20 on top of that from Trust Stones. You can use a defense or spirit set, as well as pick up another passive 10, on your offensive stones. So that would put you at a total of 40 healing power, and suddenly, the healing potency of not only the self-heals that Warrior of Light has in his kit, but also, any external heals that you might have maybe from a support unit, those are going to be amplified there significantly. So I did put this slide here together today just so we could kind of see, what kind of healing we could be expecting, coming in from some of these skills. Just keep in mind that this is Wall at 40 healing power, which would be that Dragoon passive that, should be incoming soon, as well as, doubling up on the available healing power in Trust Stones. I really think that that's going to be this unit's niche and appeal in the game. And, like I said, perhaps allows you to potentially run without a support unit in your party and kind of give you that role compression there. So let's take a look at the example that I've put together here for Warrior of Light. In most builds that I've been mocking up for him, he's somewhere between, 11,005, maybe up to 13k HP. So, I kind of split the difference here and I put him at 12,500. Again, he's going to have that 40 healing power. So looking specifically at the auto heal back ability, that is going to be a 40% flat heal in its base form. And including this 40 healing power, that will actually heal him back 9,000 HP, or roughly 75% of this health pool. Now looking at his Breath of Life skill here, that one is actually a 60% flat heal in its base form, and including that 40 healing power amplification, that would actually net him back 13,500 health, or a full heal at that point. Now that is a skill that you actually might see him use in autoplay, you know, if the enemy is out of range and he's incurred, you know, significant damage. He actually does use it in the mid fight as well, you know, maybe if you're going up against evade units and he can't hit them at all and he's got nothing else to do. You know, I've seen him do that a number of times there as well, so that's actually pretty nice. Now he does actually have even more healing capability in his kit than those two skills. His Job 25 ability, Shining Sword, it does bestow a 10% regen onto himself, and including this healing power amplification, that would actually be more than 1700 HP a tick, which is actually pretty strong. And now lastly here, he does have a counter ability in Dragon's Blade, which does also heal back 50% of the damage that it does. So definitely no shortage of options here for Warrior of Light to kind of help keep him alive and sustained in battle. Now, another thing to keep in mind here, you know, as we were just looking at on the last slide, he is going to get another 20 healing power bump as part of those Transcendence upgrades in March. So these heals are definitely going to be popping off, you know, even more, you know, once those upgrades do come to us. All right, guys, so here is a mock build that I put together for Warrior of Light. Now, I'm not going to go super in depth here, you know, into all the nuances of the build as I normally do, but, you know, essentially this is just going to be a dark resist build, something that I think, you know, could work pretty nicely against some of those dark magic teams that we've been seeing out there as of late. You know, of course, you know, those dark teams, they don't often have a lot of mid-fight sustain. So if Warrior of Light is able to tie them up, you know, just long enough for Jaden here to, you know, do significant damage on them, or perhaps even kill one of the units early, I think that this build actually would fare very, very well against those teams. Now, Warrior of Light, he's going to have significant dark resist here. I have him up at 77%. And in the build, I do have Sylvie equipped with Ellen as TMR that she can actually buff on another 20% there onto him. But, you know, another potential option for her could be Mashari's TMR for that Knight's Blessing effect. Now, oftentimes against these dark resist teams, the enemy casters, you know, may resort to non-elemental attacks, you know, just because they will do a little bit more damage. While Warrior of Light does have a pretty decent magic resist and a bit of spirit here to back him up, you know, just as a little bit of insurance. And of course, we do have Sylvie here on the midline to, you know, use her limit burst on him, you know, if he were to take significant damage. But hopefully, if Warrior of Light is kind of doing his thing and kind of helping keep himself topped off, that's going to allow Sylvie some free turns to maybe get a little bit of damage there on the end. Now, in terms of the stats here, you can see that he's going to be just over 12.6k hit points. Despite having 2 agility cards in the party, an agility TMR, and even an agility trust stone set, you can see that agility mark at just 88 is definitely super low by today's standards. Now, do keep in mind, I am using a slower Esper here in Demon Wall, so, you know, the potential is there that you could maybe get him up to mid-90s, you know, if you were using somebody like Odin, or potentially even higher if you were to use maybe some agility base stat cards on him. But I would say, you know, in most general builds, you know, this is kind of where he's going to top out, you know, maybe mid to high 80s or low 90s. I would say that's definitely going to be an issue for him, and it's definitely going to lead to enemy chain opportunities, you know, especially if his agility is broken in battle. That is certainly not a problem for Warrior of Light alone, but, you know, it is something that a lot of the old guard of tanks, you know, do have to try and overcome. Now, if you do want to take a closer look at this Dark Resist build, you know, as always, I will go ahead and put a link to that in the description below, so definitely take a look at that and let me know what you think. All right, guys, it's just a quick bonus here. I did want to quickly highlight the Death Machine Vision card in Esper. This is one that I would probably recommend to grab, you know, if you have the Visior to do so. Not necessarily for the Vision card per se, but definitely for the Esper that comes along with it. The Esper itself does actually have several unique and valuable attributes that, you know, we haven't really seen on any other Esper to date. The first one is going to be that huge missile resist of 25%. The most that we've actually seen on any other Esper in the game is 20. Now, it is also the only Esper in the game to have a significant amount of fire resist on it as well at 25%. And that is actually something that could be very valuable to have as we move towards a potential fire meta here in the future. Not only with the fire evade teams that may be out there, but, you know, as we potentially see 100 cost fire units come into the game next year. Now, aside from that, it does have some nice raw defense on there. It has some crit evasion, so 2 nice tanking tools, and it even has an innate 25% charm resist on there as well. Now, the main drawback of this Esper is, of course, that it is one of the slowest ones in the game. It's down there next to, you know, many of the other tanking Espers like Golden Ahriman, Golem, and Demon Wall at just 13 agility. Now, the Vision card, on the other hand, it definitely hasn't aged quite as well as the Esper. It's not bad, you know, especially if you don't have the Winter Holiday Party card, you know, since it does provide an unconditional 20 area resist to the party. That particular effect is great, you know, I always like to have that one. The rest of the effect is kind of where this card falls down a little bit for me, with just a 10% pierce resist, just a single effect there for the bestowed ability, and then the 20 crit evasion as the fire elemental effect. So, it's fine. It definitely, I would say, lacks a bit, when you compare it to some of the other modern VCs that have come out for other elements, specifically when it comes to area resist. So building out the card, I'd say, isn't 100% required, if you were interested in grabbing that unique Esper. So what is my verdict on Warrior of Light? And, what is my opinion on, where he stands in the current state of the game? Well, let's start with the positives. And his damage mitigation is definitely going to be on point with great defense and even a little bit of spirits. He's going to back that up with very strong resistances in the 3 most prevalent damage types of slash, magic, and missile. And if he's able to use his barrier, he's going to be in an even better spot there. Now his kit is finally getting a little bit of modernization as well. He's going to get that 5 and 8 hate, which will help draw the enemy to him immediately and help protect him against an early dispel in the battle, at least for the first few hits. But best of all, he is getting an innate auto heal back ability that is going to trigger when he hits that 50% HP threshold, and that does actually get refreshed every battle, so definitely something that could be very nice for multi-round PvP like Guild War. The other interesting thing there is that it does work with re-raise. If he were to get one shot from 60% HP down to 0 and then the re-raise triggers in, that heal back would actually proc as he comes back to life. So I think that these things, allow you some potential wiggle room for role compression, with this unit, where, you may not need to bring a dedicated support unit to back him up. But if you did decide to bring a support unit with him, that could actually be pretty interesting stall comp where, even if your defense actually went down in Guild War, it could exhaust significant resources from the attacker where, they may not actually be able to do much else after that. Now, in terms of what we have to look forward to here with Warrior of Light, well, it does start with those Dragoon job upgrades that we should be seeing here relatively shortly. And then it is going to end in a few months when he gets his Transcendence upgrades there at the 3rd anniversary. And that is when we're actually going to see the full power of these self-sustaining capabilities and that massive healing power that he's going to have, once those upgrades come through. Now, on the other hand, like many of the units, and especially tanks from the first year of the game, his agility is nowhere near a competitive point for today's game. And that is definitely a huge problem for tanks because, you can have all of the great mitigation and healing in the world, but that really goes out the window if you're constantly getting lapped in battle and getting chained on with escalating modifiers by the enemy. Another issue for him is that, his main job, again from that first year of the game, is definitely showing its age and really lacks, when it comes to any significant breaks or dispels that he can do on the opponents. Now, this issue is not exclusive to Warrior of Light, but essentially all of those early units which have unique jobs, since Gumi has decided not to upgrade any of those as they've kind of done these sweeping changes over all of the original jobs in the game. And they have yet to comment at all if they are planning on going back and upgrading any of those, which is definitely an issue for Wall and many other units. Now, to add insult to injury, his damage is not going to be competitive whatsoever. Not only is his attack value very poor, but he doesn't have any penetrations available to him anywhere in his kit. So in my view, all of this amounts to a very one-dimensional unit. He's definitely very tanky, and that roll compression angle is pretty interesting. But honestly, the enhancements, while they are pretty nice, and I'd say well above average, when it comes to mastery upgrades, I really just don't think that they fix some of the core problems with this unit that we were discussing. I think that he'll continue to be very good for dark counterplay, which, to be honest, he is already actually very good at that today. Outside of that, though, due to all of the dispel abilities that Gumi has decided to add to the game over the past year, abilities that are just going to completely negate his Brave Presence skill, I think that in a lot of cases, you're going to find him just standing there, maybe taking a beating quite well for the first few hits, and then once that innate hate wears off and he's been dispelled, you're going to find that those enemies start attacking your back line and start taking them out systematically. And unfortunately, because this unit is so one-dimensional and can't really bring any significant damage, that's going to be just a huge problem for your party. So those are my thoughts here today. Hopefully that helps some of you out there that were kind of mulling this one over and wondering where this guy fits in the current game. But, I don't think that he's going to be all that game-changing, even when he does get those Transcendence upgrades. I think, of course, he will be usable and there will be spots that, he can actually be quite good. And certainly that self-healing that he has is going to be, pretty annoying to fight against. Now, if you are a paying player, maybe that 6K banner, isn't too bad. Otherwise, though, I don't think that I could wholeheartedly recommend players invest a lot of Visior into pulling this unit. Now, if you are part of the group that already had this guy from before, at that point, the investment's already made for you, and, the conversation changes there just a little bit. We are getting a lot of free shards in the event, you know, make sure that you are grabbing those. They're going to be very useful for kind of taking this guy into Transcendence here in a few months. Alright guys, so that is going to do it here for me today with this sort of mini review here on the Final Fantasy I collab. Hit me up in the comments down below and let me know what you're thinking on Warrior of Light. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know if you kind of maybe are seeing something that I don't with this unit. I would love to hear about it. If you enjoyed the video today, you know, definitely hit that like button as well while you're down there. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And that's really all I have to say for today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.